Today, Chuck and I welcome Jessica Hodel to talk about competency-based education, CBE. Stick with us, we're coming right up.
You have instructional design questions. We discuss answers.
Jessica Hodel is the manager of flexible learning in Sinclair College's award-winning e-learning division in Dayton, Ohio. Sinclair's online programs were recognized as Ohio's best online community college programs by Premium Schools in 2021. Jessica's team focuses on improving the student experience in online courses by scaling best practices in usability and accessibility, learner support, and learner interaction. She has a special interest and expertise in the delivery of competency-based education, CBE, online courses, growing their success at Sinclair and at other public colleges and universities nationwide. Welcome to the show, Jessica. It's so nice to have you here with us.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You know, you have so much to offer. I can't wait till folks hear the story about what you're doing and how you got to get what you're doing. And we haven't talked about community colleges yet on here. And I think it's such an important part of what's going on out there, not only in ISD, but in the training and education world. Academia so needs community colleges and needs to support them. And Sinclair is right there at the top. So you being an integral part of that, I think we have a lot to learn to say.
I hope so. We'll see.
I'm sure. I can't wait to dig into this topic. Let's talk a little bit about you first, Jessica. Let's talk about a little bit of your background, just to kind of introduce listeners to who you are and maybe what your current role is at the moment and what you like so much about it.
Sure. So I came to Sinclair Community College, which is in Dayton, Ohio, about 8 years ago. And I was brought in on a really innovative project. They were calling it the Sinclair's first competency-based education programs. And I don't know if you all are familiar with competency-based education or not, but it is a really unique model of offering courses and programs where we kind of flip the learning model on its head. So normally, we take classes and we keep time as the constant, but learning as the variable. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But with CBE, what we're doing is we're flipping that on its head and we are making learning the constant and letting time be the variable. And that's a really innovative model, especially for a community college, which is set up to offer traditional classes. We have 16-week terms. Students spend the entire 16-week term in the same class, and at the end they earn credit. But the CBE model is a little different. So there was a lot of work getting that set up at Sinclair, not something we had done before. I was brought in to handle student admissions and student coaching in our classes. And then as our competency-based education program grew, it got bigger. We got more classes and more programs. I started managing that program. And then we also started to have a more prevalent need for student support and online courses in general. And so from that, we expanded the student support model. And so my department now has an entire student support model for online courses and competency-based education courses. And we are also expanding our prior learning assessment program, which is just another modality for students to earn credit at Sinclair.
See, I think that's all fantastic. And CBE, a lot of people initially don't have a good response to it. I think people looked at it incorrectly. And, the work that I've done in it, mostly in apprenticeship, is this whole notion of give people an opportunity to work at their speed, but also find a way for people that don't have the formal education to be able to come in and check out on their mastery and move through programs too.
Exactly.
And I think the fact that you're looking at prior learning, and when you look at that, that's credits people have earned for just doing their jobs and doing great things. And I'm just so happy that Sinclair's doing that.
Jessica, can you talk a little bit about what created this need or this desire to go into that kind of a model?
Well, to be honest, the opportunity came from a grant opportunity. So Sinclair got a $12 million tax grant that they gave us, and they said, go forth and develop competency-based education programs. And that's what initially got us into it. But I think after we started to see the need and the demand from students for this type of learning. They really want the flexibility that this offers them. And so when we started to see that we were attracting new types of student populations because of these more flexible options for earning credit, we realized this was a real opportunity to grow enrollment and keep students taking courses. So in addition to enrollment, also help with retention. Once we realized the potential there, we started to sell it, I'll say, to the other departments and divisions on campus, because as Chuck said, it's sometimes a hard sell. Great opportunity for students, but a completely different way of thinking for faculty who are normally used to doing the same thing that they've always done. And this is not that.
And faculty and administrators, it takes a while for them to warm up to this because sometimes they look at it as an income loss or a revenue opportunity they can't capitalize for different reasons, which no need to go into that here. But let me ask you, you talk about a changing population. And what I found is I started getting an older population when I started to look at life experience and really started to integrate CBE. Is that the same thing you've come up with?
I definitely feel like it started that way. Our target population for this type of learning is definitely the adult learner who is not right out of high school. So we're looking at maybe 25 and up, 24 and up, and our average
Hmm.
age of student to take these courses is 28. And so it
Okay.
is an older population that's interested in this. But as we're seeing, it's spread to other areas of the college and to more and more general education courses. It's becoming something that I think the general population is more interested in because students are coming to expect new things from institutions of higher education and even K through 12. There, after the pandemic hit, there was this increased need for flexibility. And this type of education model offers students that additional flexibility that sometimes they can't even get from a regular online course because there are still things like due dates that are difficult for them to meet.
Well, I think that all plays well with the vast majority of folks that maybe haven't had a great educational experience to begin with, whether it's
Mhm.
K-12 or whether they tried to go to college, took a first class, didn't like it for whatever reason, went to the workforce. And now they see that it's going to aid them to be able to get a degree or a certificate and to have this mechanism in place for them to work through and show that they are smart people. They just don't have the ticket yet. And I would think, especially in Dayton, I know Dayton a little bit. I don't know if you know this or not, but I was on the adjunct faculty at Sinclair before I came to DC. So, I got to know the institution very well, attended classes there, very young, like your population. And the thing that always impressed me about the school was it just seemed like they were always there for the students. They were always trying to find better ways to do things. And you being part of this and being able to get that grant, this is just like the next level of this whole thing.
So, Jessica, from somebody who is new to the field of ISD and new to the idea of CBE, um, could you talk us through what that actually looks like? So, if I'm a student enrolling at the community college there, how would you explain it to me so that I would understand the benefit of what this actually is for those listeners who are tuning in right now and aren't really sure, they've never really seen that in action?
Sure. So I will start by saying that our motto for when we talk about CBE programs is just because you've seen a CBE program, you've seen one CBE program, which means that CBE programs can look different at every institution. And so, generally, to go back to something I mentioned earlier, the general education model for when you take classes at an institution of higher education is that we hold time as the constant and learning as the variable. And what I mean by that is that we always have students take courses for a certain length of time, whether it be a 12-week course or a 16-week course at some place like Sinclair. And the reason learning is the variable is because you can finish one of these courses with an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. So we really have no way of measuring if all of the students came out of the course with the same mastery levels, the same levels of competence. But with CBE, particularly at Sinclair, what we've been able to do is flip that again on its head. So we are keeping learning as the constant and taking time and letting that be the variable. And the way that we're doing that is we're allowing students to start and finish courses at any point in time during the semester. And we are also holding learning constant by making sure that students are completing all of their activities and assignments in the courses with an 80% or better. You can get higher than an 80%, but you must get an 80% on all of your assignments in order to move forward. And I think that's something that is really attracting employers. They're really interested in knowing that, yes, the students that are coming out of these courses and these programs have the skills and the competencies that they need to learn, and they don't have to rely on the fact of what grade did the student get in this course. Sure, they took it, it's on their transcript. I don't really know what the outcomes were from that course.
That's very interesting. So you're focusing on gen eds?
We weren't actually trying to focus on gen eds, but yes, we have a
Well,
lot
that's
of
what
gen eds
happens, right?
that are coming out of CBE.
Yeah. See, and I
It's
think that's
easier to do.
fascinating.
It was easier to do when you have a program that has a really clearly defined set of competencies. Let's call it like a plus course from computer information systems, or like a networking
hmm
security degree, something like that. They can
Yeah.
already define what the competencies are and align them specifically with a credential to be earned. And it gets a little trickier when you have, say, an art course and you have to redefine the competencies to make sure they fit with this model, but you're not coming out of an art course, an introduction to art course per se, with a credential that says, here, this is what I've learned. It's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, I would think it'd be a lot harder on you too. And you have a requirement that they have to have the 5 gen eds to get a degree, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. So I would, as a student, if I was looking back at this, I'd say, well, I don't want to take any of these gen eds, but I have to. So let me find a great way to do this. And gosh, I would think that's very efficient too for the school, right?
It is. It's definitely efficient for the school. I feel like those are the types of things I'm having to sell the schools, plural schools, on to get them on board with this type of thing. But there are a lot of benefits to it.
So, moving on to our second question for you, Jessica. What lessons did you learn from the pandemic on what it means to have a quality designed course?
Sure. So first, I feel like the pandemic taught kind of all institutions of higher education, K through 12, whatever they may be, that a lot of content that we traditionally thought was absolutely not going to be able to be offered online can actually be offered online in a way that maybe we haven't thought of before. So I've been hearing that for years from other departments and divisions on campus that, our content, or my content in particular, is too hands-on, too abstract, too complicated, whatever it may be, to be taught in an online setting. But when the pandemic hit, all of these instructors in these courses were essentially forced to move online. So moving to remote learning was not a choice. It was a necessity to keep going, a necessity to keep functioning as an institution. And so after that happened, we're seeing more incorporation of things like synchronous Zoom sessions, an increased use of remote proctoring services that we may not have used before, really innovative things like gamified lab simulations. So all of these things that we thought weren't previously possible are actually becoming a preference for instructors and for students rather than something that we have to do. That's a really unique
Yeah.
concept for us. I think something that was really unexpected from the pandemic. Chuck, you're laughing. Were you going to say something?
I mean, this whole notion of how this works, and you think about all the faculty who had never done this voluntarily, right?
Mhm.
And you would have had to probably tied them up and taken them in. And I think of all the times that I've migrated courses for folks that just absolutely didn't know anything to do with it, didn't want to be
Mhm.
online, certainly would not do anything synchronous. And now, so
That's
we have this whole,
right.
right? So we have this whole population of teaching faculty, professors, and adjuncts, and everybody else that are now, waist deep in this, and I think they're going to love it. But the other side of this is the student side, and what I'm seeing and the research I'm seeing is at least 30% of students now don't want to go back into a classroom, period. And probably as much as 60 or 70% will be perfectly happy never going back in a classroom again. Are you starting to see that kind of migration too in your populations?
So I have an interesting comment on that, and the Sinclair students might be interested to hear this about themselves. This is not something that we've talked about in a public forum, but it's funny because I feel like we've done a really good job of surveying students to find out about what their interest levels are in coming back to campus and when. And when we did these surveys, or when we're doing these surveys, we're finding from students that they say on the survey in their responses, man, I can't wait to get back to campus. Online courses are not for me. Get me in a classroom so I can get face to face with my instructors and with my peers. But then when it came time to
They didn't
register for
show up.
classes for fall, no one's registering for face-to-face
Right.
classes. And we're going, what's happening? This is not what you're telling us that you want. And so now we're having to go back and reevaluate everything that's being offered for fall and try to see if we can now match the
Yeah.
demand with the need. And it's just a really interesting
Well,
interesting thing.
that matches my research exactly. And the other thing I just saw research yesterday. It said that 30% of people that work in an office will quit before they go back in an office. So we, I can't address that because it's not what we're talking about. But I just think it shows that there's about a third of folks that have gone through this that have forever changed in terms of their representation of work and school.
Mhm.
And I think as professionals, you're already out in front of it, Jess, and a lot of places are, but a lot of places aren't. And I think that it'd be very wise for them to listen to this and look at the research and do some things that allow them to be more flexible and bring populations in that are just going to vote with, no, I'm not coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with that. And so speaking from experience on what's going on so far with the return to work thing for us is that I do think that on the topic of lessons learned, I do think that some employers, mine included, are learning some lessons about what remote work can be and what work from home
Right.
could be. So things, again, that we never thought that we would be saying and things that we wouldn't be doing, we are now having to create policies for because we did learn a lot. We learned that people are productive working from home despite any pre-notions or previous beliefs, and we can do it and we do it well. And because of that, let's continue to learn from what works for us and be more flexible, not only for students, but for employees as well.
And I think what you find, this has been my experience because I've been teaching online forever, and
Mhm.
I found that students are more likely to devote more time to an online course. And I think employees are more likely to work out of normal office hours if they're working from home because we've taken this whole environmental context of 9 to 5 or whatever your work hours would be, or I'm going once a week on campus, from 7 to 9:30. And we've now
Mhm.
replaced that with this is what you need to get done. And I think that melds itself very well with CBE, don't you, Jess? And just this notion of not only are we migrating the thoughts of students about what they want to do, but we're also putting in this whole foundational context for being able to do this seamlessly.
I agree. Lots of lessons to be learned here all around. So we were talking about the lessons learned from the pandemic for quality courses. And so going back to that idea that all of the face-to-face courses were forced online, but in a good way, they were forced online because of the pandemic. But we're also finding that when that happened, that in the big push in early 2020 to get all of our face-to-face courses online, that we really quickly realized that not all online courses are created equally. And so what I mean by that is that there was this mad dash, to get everything online as quickly as possible, but there was very little thought going into how this would be done. So what we ended up with was this kind of huge compilation of courses that were just, I don't know, links thrown everywhere, assignments and activities in random spots with unclear directions and just general content thrown all over the course. And it was just a haphazard situation where students weren't really understanding how to navigate through the courses in our learning management system. And so just kind of a lack of consideration for how students were experiencing the courses in the learning management system. And so that sort of caused us to reevaluate the way that we design courses in general. Something that we're trying as a new recent evolution of our instructional design model is that instead of developing like an online course, instead of saying we're going to develop this course as online or we're going to develop this course as CBE, that we're going to look at it from a multimodal development approach where we collect the content that we need and then see how it can be dispersed in all modalities. So online, CBE, face-to-face, blended, It's sort of a different way of thinking again for faculty is I'm not developing this course as online. I'm collecting the content as a subject matter expert, and then I'm working with an instructional designer to figure out how that content might look or how it might be delivered in all of these different modalities. And I think that's working out really well for us, but kind of a scary thing for faculty again in general.
Well, I think the one thing that you learn about faculty, and I'm faculty, so I can say this, is it's hard for us to let go of being on center stage. It's hard for us to not be the center of this. And I gave a talk to a group of people last week, and this is one of the things that I focused on because they work with subject matter experts who are teachers. And the whole notion is I like to call people facilitators. Let's facilitate learning, whether you're a professor or tenured or whether you're an adjunct and you come in, for a class a year and teach. I think the more we think about faculty as facilitators, the easier it is for us on the design side to come up with this multiple delivery system, multiple garner the design system that works across the board because you take the focus away from an individual and put it on the content and the learner. So it's not just learner focus, but it's also this process learner focus, which I think is the wave of the future.
Chuck, I think that was a really pertinent point that you just made, but I am actually shocked to hear on camera you admit something like online learning takes the focus away from me as an instructor. Good for you. Very enlightened guy over there.
Well, okay, so you could buy me something when we see each other, but the thing I have gotten, I even put it in a couple of my books, the great teacher theory that sinks every class that they teach because the focus goes away from the content and the learner. And for me, the learner is the most important part of this. If you can't focus on the learner and find a way to get them to mastery, then why don't you stay home? Because I don't need another ego in the classroom. I don't need somebody else who's there to prove something. This is about the people that are on the other end of this. They're either in your classroom or they're sitting there in that computer, and maybe they're getting there at 3 a.m. and maybe they're in another country. And my focus as a designer from the beginning is always on that individual. And I look at them as individuals. I don't even look at them as populations. I mean, I do population studies and we do the hard work that way in instructional design, but I try to focus on that one learner. So when I look at 605 for the summer, I look at Denise or I'd look at somebody else who's in my course and say, how can I best serve them with this design? And I think it's going to take some time. Maybe you disagree, Jess, but I think it's going to take some time to take this focus off of the instructor and put it back on the learner. And I think this has really been a major step in that direction.
I think the pandemic in general has been a major push, a shove, we'll say, in that direction. Yes, but I agree. I think it's going to take some time, but I think you have a great mindset for it. And if we can spread that mindset about putting the focus on the learner, I think we can make some real forward progress in that area.
Well, let's get into some deep dive in ISD because CBE requires more instructional design expertise than what a normal design would be. And I remember when I did a DOL grant. It was a 2-year grant to put an apprenticeship into CBE, but also to make it so that people could come in and test through an apprenticeship and not have to sit through 4 or 5 years in apprenticeship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I ended up doing was I was writing thousands and thousands of behavioral objectives because without that behavioral objective and the matching mastery evaluation, you don't have any performance agreement, obviously, using more ISD jargon. But the whole thing is you start with that incredible objective and now you can do all the rest of it. But it takes time to do that. You got to write one for every single thing that you got.
I agree. And I feel like, though, I don't want to say that we've cheated. Cheated doesn't feel like the right word, but maybe taken an opportunity to use objectives from really well created and well designed online courses that seem like they would be a good or easy fit to transition into CBE, and maybe just changing some of the words of the objective. So instead of letting students get by with things like understand, we change understand to demonstrate or recite, something like that. Something more specific that would more correlate to an actual thing that you can show an employer that you can do rather than something that you know up here. And so I think those are the major changes that we made. But yeah, making sure that you get the competencies right from the beginning is a crucial step, and then developing questions and assignments and activities that align to those things that are meaningful for both the student and for the employer.
It's funny
And I
because
think,
I saw Chuck's head nodding feverishly when you said understand. I know that he does not like that
yeah,
word
I will
when it
throw
comes
some.
to objectives.
If I have any ISD students in grad school that use understand or learn or anything like that, then it's not
They're
good.
toast.
But the whole thing is, it doesn't matter if you steal them. I mean, I invite everybody to steal my stuff because that's how we all learn. I mean, it doesn't matter about that stuff.
Mhm.
And if you can reuse them, that's even more efficient for you. But I
Agreed.
think, once employers look at this and once the institutions look at this and they figure out, and the other thing is with the regional accrediting bodies, they are merciless. They want evaluation of every course, of every objective. And they're
Mhm.
slowly pushing that. I don't know where it's at now because I haven't been on a Middle States committee for a while, but it got to the point where unless you can show a course actually move someone to mastery in something, that it's not valid, that you've got to come up with something better than that. And so this
Mhm.
whole push, like you talk about COVID and everything else, I think this really is for the betterment of not only instructional design but of academia and everyone else that's in this business to put out a better product, to think about what they're doing and make this something that's viable, especially for learners.
Agreed. If we have to get creative in how we're offering and delivering courses, then let's do it in the best and most quality way possible.
And I think that's going to show. I think over time, what you're going to find is that the quality is going to rise, just like in any business or anything else. The best folks survive and prosper. And I think you're seeing that in education. And I think Sinclair and your work is a perfect example of that. You got an award recently, too, didn't you?
Oh, we sure did. One of the best online colleges.
Yeah. So that, oh, is that all? Just one of the best online colleges? I thought it was a big deal or something.
You got to be
Uh,
humble.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's okay not to be humble out here because, gosh, I mean, that's fantastic. Congratulations. But I think it speaks very highly of this notion that they've got people like you in there that are pushing this button and they're getting up and raising their arms and putting up red flags and saying, we can do better than this. We can do better than this. We can do better than this. And it's just fantastic, Jess. I mean, it's just wonderful stuff. I love it.
Good deal. We're trying.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one last question in terms of evaluating the new way that you're the CBE. Is there an
Mhm.
evaluation process? Like, have you started that, and what does it look like at this point in terms of the students you've evaluated, the faculty, the whole process? Has that gone
Mhm.
into play at this point?
hmm So we do. We love evaluation processes. The trouble is not reading too much into one evaluation method. So for our CBE courses and for honestly all courses at our institution, we have a really rigorous method of making sure that we survey students on their experience in the course, their outcomes in the course, the faculty experience in teaching the course and delivering the course and how effective that is. Then also success rates. We really pay a lot of attention to our success rates in courses. And again, you can read some things from student success rates in courses from term to term, but you don't want to read too much into it because there's a lot of different factors going into that. Did we have a different demographic of students from one term to the other? Were students registering later in the semester that term? Differences in quality of faculty or quality of courses, but those are all things that we reevaluate constantly. And then one of the things that we really love to do to put all of our courses on a 3-year revision cycle. And so during the 3-year period that we first offer the classes, when it rolls off of the instructional design team, we'll say, okay, let's collect all of the student feedback, all of the faculty feedback, look at success rates, and then go back in and take all of those things into account to revise the course with all of the things that we heard about. So I think we do a really good job of that and making sure that quality assurance is not just a technical thing, but also seen from the user experience as well.
And I think that's so important. I call it half-life, and it's how long does your course really start to get stale and smelly because it needs to be looked at.
Mm-hmm.
And I look
Very
at it a lot from the content side because I do a lot of things that are very technical, and data can get stale in milliseconds and some of this stuff. But I think that you have this process, and that speaks a lot for the institution and you too, because most folks don't think about half-life. They just put the course out there and take a deep sigh and move on. I mean, this is all professional deep dive ISD stuff, Jess, and it's good stuff for novice designers and people just thinking about doing this stuff to think about. So, making sure you write great objectives, making sure that you've thought about half-life when you're going to review courses for content and process, and how we're going to look at mastery. What's our plan for looking at mastery? We can do level ones only, which I hope nobody in the world's ever doing that anymore. But we're going to look at mastery. We're going to look at what happens in level 3, 6 months, 8 months out. I don't know. Are you doing ROIs and things too? Are you looking at, how much this works for the institution?
I will say we are. I technically am not. It's difficult to do an ROI for a CBE program in particular. I'm going to tell you that. Sure. So I'm not going to get into it. It's difficult.
No, it is difficult, but I think even if, return on investment can be a lot of things too. It's not always just monetary. It can be, do we have very happy graduates? Are they going out and doing great things? Are they recommending this institution to others? And all those kind of things, I think, are massive returns on investment. And
I agree. The big one that we've been trying to sell, I mentioned a little bit about it when we first started chatting, was that we've seen significant jumps in the types of learners that we're attracting to the institution. So a lot of the concern for CBE when we first started this new modality was that the instructors essentially thought we were poaching students from the other modalities. So they were saying, I bet students are just going to take our CBE courses and not take our online and our face-to-face courses. And we had to do a lot of work to prove to them that wasn't necessarily the case. And so that's when we learned that about 30% of our students that are taking CBE courses are actually entirely new to the institution. So it's not like they're just taking all of the students from the other modalities, but that is a concern.
Well, and I think the more this goes on, the wise that look at these issues will find out that you're not pushing people away, you're bringing people in and at a significant rate. So, it all goes back to what's most important in this equation. And I think when you put the learner as the most important thing, they know that. They tell their family and friends that, and they vote with their tuition. That's it's the hard truth of it. So I think this is all great stuff, Jess. And it's sad now that we have to get to the wheel of horror. That Denise,
I light up when this time happens. I don't know.
See,
I'm like a little kid.
If we did nothing else, we would do this. If Denise was full time producing this, I don't interject much, but I think we ought to do interviews first. I don't know why. So are you ready, Jess?
Are you ready?
Can you ever really be ready for something like this?
Okay, so we have. That's really hard for me to read my writing. Seriously, what language do you want to learn? If you want to learn a language.
Okay, so I'm gonna, slap myself on the arm a little bit, and I'm gonna say French because I took 3 years of French when I was in high school. And guess how many French words or phrases that I remember?
If you're like me, like 5. Oh, 0.
No, I don't even think I can do 5. I really don't. I might. Je m'appelle Jessica. My name is Jessica. I think that's all I got for you. And then I know that the name for window because it's really pretty to say. So la fenêtre. And then I got nothing else. So 2. I remember 2 things.
That's hilarious.
Well, you can introduce Windows. I mean, you could work at Microsoft. See, this is where it goes off. Yeah. This is where it goes off track quickly. Okay, next spin.
Oh no.
Ocean or mountains? What do you prefer?
Oh, I think I know this one.
Probably mountains. I will say my best vacation is probably somewhere where I can see the mountains and the ocean. There are not a lot of places like that, but maybe like a lake, a beach lake in the mountains.
Oh, yes. New Hampshire. New Hampshire is perfect. New Hampshire is perfect for that. Oh, yeah.
Remember that. Chuck, is that what you thought I was going to say or no?
Since you've recently been more towards the ocean, I wondered, perhaps.
I feel like I'm only going towards the ocean lately because those are the drivable distances with the dog.
Yeah,
you can't drive. So the dog just
is the dog there? Oh, the doggy.
Is Charlotte on? Yeah, I'll show Charlotte.
Yeah, she's here.
What a cute.
Yeah, so those are the drivable distances. So that's where we go. I can't drive to the mountains. Otherwise I would.
That's the practical side of you, I would expect.
Yep.
So one more. You want to do one more?
Yes. One more.
Once that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. We got to hit one that we put on there.
Oh, here we go. A Tesla.
Okay.
A Tesla or a BMW.
Ooh.
That was Chuck's question for
Okay.
you.
I never have a simple answer, apparently, to any of these questions, but I'm going to tell you a BMW.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the reason being is because my husband actually has a Tesla, and I have never driven that thing. Not one time.
Why? Why?
It's too tricky for me. There's only one pedal. There's no brake pedal. You don't have a key to start it. And I am like, a car is a scary thing in general. And I feel like if I'm not comfortable with the machine and the technology, I don't want to drive it. I'm not there yet. Maybe he should take me around in the parking lot, and next week I might have a different answer. We'll see.
Well, we'll have to get a message to that individual. See if we can do
I know.
something about
I was
that.
going to say, I hope David doesn't hear that part. I'll be in trouble.
Well, Jess, I can't tell you how much fun this has been. I hope you've enjoyed it. And most importantly, I think people that watch this, that are thinking about what they can do that's innovative and how they can get ahead of all this stuff they have no control over and put the focus back on the learner. I mean, you have just nailed it. And I really appreciate you being here.
Again, I appreciate you having me. It was fun talking about one of my passion areas, CBE, so I like it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode. We hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to put them in the comment section, and we will get back to you on those. And hit subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this. Thanks again.